Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Super Mario Bros. 1, brought to us by Nintendo. Super Mario Bros. 1 is one of the greatest and most iconic video games of all time. It was the top-selling video game for many years until Wii Sports just recently beat it out. For many of us, it was the very first video game we ever got a chance to play. It brought the video game industry back from the video game crash of 1983, and it also moved the industry from North America over to Japan. And while we had already been introduced to Mario as Jumpman and Donkey Kong, as well as his younger brother Luigi as they teamed up in Mario Brothers, but also this game introduced us to many new characters that we would come to know and love, such as Bowser, Princess Toadstool, aka Peach, the Toads, and many of the enemies that we will be fighting for years to come. Super Mario Bros. Contains 8 different worlds, with each of the 8 worlds being broken down into 4 levels. So here we go with Super Mario Bros. 1 on the NES. Mario 1 happened to be one of the very first platformers to ever be created. A game of this length had really never been seen before, as most arcade games would just loop and loop, and your main goal was to collect a certain amount of score. While score is still a factor in Mario 1, our main goal is really to get through each level and save the princess. As you travel along with Mario, you can jump up and hit different blocks. You can break normal blocks, which may sometimes reveal coins, as well as some extra things, including plants that will grow, allowing you to climb them to other parts of the level. As well as you can hit question mark blocks to get coins, multiple coins in one block. You can get mushrooms, which as you can see, made us grow in size, in which case we have an extra hit when we run into enemies, but also as this other size, we can also hit other blocks to reveal fire flowers, where normal mushrooms would normally appear. These fire flowers give us a different look, as well as they allow us to fire fireballs at enemies. In the second level of the game, you can break some blocks and get up to the top here, in which case you can bypass most of the level. Doing so is a nice shortcut and will allow us to bypass most of the enemies in the level. You can also go down certain pipes in the game by pressing down while standing on them, in which case they will take you to the different parts of the game. These extra little areas usually contain a lot of coins for you to pick up as a bonus. At the end of level 1-2, if you continue to ride the blocks on the top ceiling, you can actually run all the way over to a warp zone, which will take you either to World 2, 3, or 4, depending upon which pipe you choose to go down. There's also a famous glitch using those pipes at the end, which can take you to a special bonus world known as the Minus World. In the original NES release, there's only one minus level that will keep looping repeatedly. However, in the Japanese version of the game, you can actually travel through 3 different minus levels. At the end of each level, when you grab the flag at the end, if your timer has a 1, a 3, or a 6 at the end of it, you'll actually get a certain amount of fireworks to appear, as you can see there when I ended the level. Each of the Dash 4 levels contains a castle where we have to battle Bowser at the end of the level. Be careful when making your way through these stages, as there's going to be lots of different pits to fall in, as well as these rotating fireballs. When you usually get near the end of the stages, Bowser will start firing different amounts of fire at you. When you reach the end of the level, you have to deal with Bowser on a bridge. There are several ways to defeat him. You can use your fireballs to destroy him by hitting him a few times with them, in which case it'll be a little bit weird, as he actually will turn into a normal enemy as he falls off screen. Or you can jump over him or get past him and hit the axe at the end, which will cause the bridge to collapse. Once we do that though, you get one of the most infamous lines in video game history. "Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle." In World 2-1, I grabbed the star for the very first time, which gives you invincibility. With this invincibility, you can run through any enemies, but of course if we fall into pits, we will still lose a life. As we travel into this pipe at the end of 2-1, we enter an underwater level for the first time, introducing us to some new enemies, including the bloopers, which are these squid-like enemies, that if you actually walk across the bottom of the screen, they actually can't come down low enough to actually hit you, as well as we have these cheap enemies, which are some fish. We'll also see some flying versions of these cheeps later on in the game. Be very careful of these open areas as you will try to get sucked down, and you'll have to press the button fast enough to make sure that you can stay afloat and not lose a life. When you reach the pipe at the end, go through it and you're actually back outside where we can complete the stage. You may be wondering why I'm even given some strategies for the original Mario. It's so famous and so popular, it's been played by pretty much everyone in the world, so most people already know how to complete the game. And even though a ton of people have already played through the game, I have had several requests to play the original Mario games, so it was best to start with the original Super Mario Bros. World 2-3 introduces some bridges to us, where the whole level is made up of different bridge segments, including some pieces that are very small and you have to be very careful when jumping between them. It also introduces us to the flying cheat, which I mentioned in the previous level. Two 2-4's castle is very similar to 1-4's level. There are some new perils to deal with, including fireballs that are coming out of the lava, as well as you have some short platforms here that you have to make your way across. Be careful of the fireballs that are coming at you when you get close to Bowser, then you can either do a straight jump over them, or once again if you have the fire flower, deliver their shots to defeat them. After we beat them, we have another scene with Toad. World 3-1 is one of my favorites, as it introduces a night level for the first time. While the background has only been changed from blue to black, it made a big difference and made you really feel like you were in a different world. Mario controls rather interestingly. It's one of the first games to really introduce momentum in terms of when you're able to make jumps and how far you're able to go with those jumps. Getting used to controlling Mario perfectly can take a little bit of time, but once you do so, you can actually pull off some pretty crazy stuff. At the end of the level, if you jump on the turtle at the right point, you can actually get it to be stuck in a loop and collect a lot of extra lives, as many as you actually want. However, the game can only tell you that you have 9 lives, and once you go above that, it actually introduces a different character next to that number to signify how many extra lives you really do have. So instead of having a certain number of lives past 9, you'll actually have 2 different symbols, usually a symbol and a letter, such as right there as I have crown H amount of lives. Overall, the movements and control of Mario have been manipulated a lot by people, and those who have mastered it have been able to pull off some pretty entertaining things, including the entire game being beating while Mario is walking backwards. Three is another one of these long tree-like platform stages, and it has some of these weighted platforms that when you stand on one side for long enough, it raises the other side, and you have to manipulate them right so that you can get across the gaps using them. Three 4 is the hardest of the castles so far, as we have a lot of these spinning, rotating fireballs that will keep going around, including this area right here, where you have to time it correctly to be able to jump in between 2 of them as they're turning at different speeds. At the end, I'll take out Bowser again with the fire flower, in which case he actually ends up turning into a beetle when he dies, which is an enemy we haven't seen yet in the game. 4-1 introduces us to another mainstay of the Mario franchise, this time with Lakitu. Lakitu rides around in his Cloudmobile as he throws another enemy that's introduced in this level, the Spinies, down at you. He keeps throwing down Spinies as you run through the stage, and if they open up on the ground, they actually start walking around like normal enemies. However, with the spikes on their back, you're not actually able to jump on them like the Koopa Troopas or the Goombas. At the beginning of 4-2, you have a really long jump to make with some small platforms, so be very careful when making it across there. When you make it across this gap, however,